Welcome back, fellow travelers. I want to talk to you today about your decision on whether you should fly on Air Canada or Westjet when flying within Canada. So, whether you are a citizen of Canada and looking to just get from one city to another, or you're traveling through Canada and you want to know which airline you should be booking with, this will cover the pros and cons of both airlines. High level stuff, really, and just give you my opinion at the end. I'll put a disclaimer in that I used to work for Air Canada, so I definitely have a bias towards which airline I prefer. That's Air Canada, but I will still try to put that aside and give you the benefits of flying on WestJet versus the benefits of flying on Air Canada. So let's get started. The first thing that we're going to look at is actually the Skytrax rating. You might be wondering, well, what is Skytrax? Skytrax was introduced in 1999 and is considered the leading international airline rating classification. So if they give you a 5-star, you're considered one of the best airlines, and then it goes all the way down. So right off the bat, Air Canada is considered a 4-star airline, which is a great rating. WestJet is considered a 3-star airline, so that is still a good rating, but it definitely means that Air Canada is a notch above. According to Skytrax and according to a lot of people, really it'll come down to what you feel is most important for you when flying. Speaking of flying, we'll talk about the fleets that both airlines use. So WestJet has Boeing 737s and Boeing 767s as the major backbone for their fleet. They do have turboprop aircrafts, and that's the Q400, so they don't have that many aircrafts. Now, there are different variations of each of the aircraft. So as an example, the Boeing 737 has the 737-600, 700, and 800. And as a result, each aircraft carries a different amount of passengers. Now, their smallest jet carries 113 people. Their largest carries 262 people. Now, when you compare it to Air Canada, there really is no competition. Air Canada, they have 19 different models that include the Boeing, Airbus, Embraer, Bombardier. It goes on, and there are a lot of great aircrafts. The 777, the 787, 767, obviously the Airbus 320, the old Airbus 319s, all the way down to Bombardier Dash 8s that hold 30 people. So there are a different amount of configurations with these flights as well. Now, on these aircrafts, we do have business class, economy, and premium economy on Air Canada. For WestJet, there is no business class. So if you're looking at flying business class, the answer right away is Air Canada. However, if you don't really need it and you're just maybe want something a bit extra, they do have Economy Plus on WestJet. That kind of makes up for their economy offerings. The seat width on WestJet is 17 inches. On Air Canada, you're looking at, depending on the aircraft, the lowest that you really get for the jets is 17.8. A lot of them are 18, so you do get that extra inch in the width. So if you are a wider person, that Air Canada extra width might help you out. The seat pitches do vary, again, also with Air Canada. Sometimes going to 29 inches all the way up to 34, even 35 if you're on an Embraer. WestJet stretches from 31 to 33 on the pitch. Now, in terms of food on board, if you're hungry, it's always my suggestion to eat beforehand, because it might take a while to get something served on flight, let alone the fact you'll have to pay for it anyways. So on flights under 2.5 hours, generally you'll get a small snack or a drink, something like that, free of charge. But if you want like real food, you're going to have to pay for it, and the prices do vary depending on what you're going to get. And that's the same on both aircrafts. So you're still paying no matter what. Doesn't really matter. I would say just get something beforehand. Don't worry about that whole food business. All right, let's move on to your baggage. So if you're going to be traveling, you need your baggage. What is different? Well, there is actually some differences here. The carry-on baggage for Air Canada, 21.5 inches tall, 9 inches wide, 15.5 inches long. On WestJet, it's 21 inches tall, 9 inches wide, and 15 inches long. So just a tad smaller than Air Canada. It probably won't make a difference, to be quite honest, but it is something worth noting. Now, with both airlines, you are allowed an additional personal item. On WestJet, that is 16 inches by 6 inches by 13 inches. On Air Canada, it is 17 by 6 by 13. Now again, a bit bigger on Air Canada, but not by much really. Now for checked baggage, there is baggage fees. Both airlines do charge for checked baggage. The first bag on Air Canada is $28.25 per direction, but that includes tax. On Westjet, it is $25. They state $25 to $29.50. I don't know the pricing differential. I did reach out to Westjet, but I wasn't able to secure an answer through their Twitter account. So that's unfortunate. So I'm not too sure what that really means, but let's just take it as Westjet is better by a few dollars. Now, in terms of changes and cancellations, these vary wildly depending on your fare, depending on your destination, depending on your whole ticket. So we're not really going to cover it because there could be a lot of variables. Just know that there is change fees and cancellation fees on both airlines, so you're not going to escape that from booking one to another. Next, I want to look at the actual airline networks that both airlines have. So Air Canada is part of Star Alliance, so right off the bat, they are most likely going to win this one simply because they have access to a lot more routes if you're looking at getting in or out of Canada. Although we are looking specifically at flying within Canada, so the networks are essentially the same. Now, there are a few partnerships that Air Canada has with local airlines. Westjet has something similar with a few of them as well. But in reality, the code share partners that each airline has, which Westjet does have. A lot of people have that misconception that Westjet is like a solo airline that relies specifically on their own network to get people around. No, they do have some partners like American Airlines, Cathay Pacific, China Airlines, Emirates, KLM, Korean Air, and even Qantas. So that's just to name a few. There are definitely more. Air Canada, as I mentioned, though, they have the Star Alliance network, and aside from that, they do have a few similar partners. So in reality, just do your due diligence when booking. If you are coming from abroad, the one thing that you might really pay attention to is if you are a Star Alliance member, so you have a frequent flyer program through Star Alliance that is not Air Canada, you can still accumulate your miles on Air Canada. So that is something that is really important. It's actually critical if you are a avid collector of airline points or miles. That might mean that Air Canada is your only choice in this case, because Westjet, while they do have a rewards program, it is a solitary rewards program. It just focuses on Westjet. However, when looking at the airline flight maps and the route maps that they provide on their website, you can see that within Canada, Air Canada has a slight edge on the sheer number of places that they fly to. Now, this does cause some issues because Air Canada does have a monopoly for certain markets or certain routes at least. You know, Westjet might fly to these areas, but it might not be from the numerous amount of departure points like Air Canada might have, which would cause prices to be a bit more inflated on Air Canada than there otherwise would be at when you look at markets that are served by both major airlines. Now, speaking of prices, how do both airlines compare? Well, surprisingly enough, they're fairly similar. Most of the time, Air Canada is the same price as Westjet, or about $10 to $15 more. So you got to look at what are you paying that's $10 to $15 more. What's worth it? Is the $15 really a major concern for you? If it isn't, Air Canada is probably the airline to fly with because of some of the reasons that I mentioned before, whether it's that you collect miles with another program, or even if you don't collect it with another program, consider maybe sign up for one on Air Canada and you can use those miles on Aeroplan. You can maybe get a gift card or something like that from your short trips. It is something that is worth exploring. Not only that, there's also the fact that their seats are a bit wider. There's also the business class possibility if you are interested in flying business class from, let's say, Toronto to Vancouver, or you're going Halifax to Calgary. You're going some sort of route that takes quite a few hours. Having that business class comfort would be something to really look at. Westjet has a single cabin. Now, I did mention that they did have Economy Plus. However, that isn't really business class, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. The thing that really defines Westjet is how they treat their passengers. They really treat their passengers with care. They have good people working for them. They have great frontline agents, and definitely Air Canada does have those as well. However, there are some agents that are not always that pleasant. Fortunately, I worked with a few of them, but by and large, I think Air Canada gets a bad rap for their customer service. There are a lot of people that care at Air Canada, but WestJet makes it their selling point. So obviously they're going to go a bit more and a bit further. If you really value the soft product, if you really value communicating with the people that are going to be getting you from point A to point B, WestJet might be the airline for you. Just know that you're trading off a slight amount of comfort at a slight amount of prestige by flying on WestJet. And there you have it. That is the two airlines. My suggestion, as I mentioned at the start, is still to fly Air Canada. I would like to know who you would like to decide between Air Canada or WestJet. Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear it. In the meantime, if you'd like to check out some of my other videos, you can do that on screen right now. And if you'd like to subscribe, it will let you know when we upload new content. I'd like to thank you for making me a part of your day. And until next time, safe travels.